Thanks very much for the invitation to speak today. Lovely to be involved and to share some of our experience in loyalty. There have been massive winners and losers over the last 12 months in all areas of business. And I'm conscious now more than ever, loyalty is important to brands to either to win back what they've lost or to shore up what they've gained. But that is easier said than done. So today we will hopefully share some of our experience of who does this well, what levers are they pulling, and very importantly, how we can explain the dynamics of loyalty to our colleagues. But first, some quick introductions. Iain, you go first.
Hi, I'm Ian Pringle. I'm a partner at New World Loyalty, a global loyalty consultancy. I also host the Loyalty Podcast, which is a podcast that's particularly for the loyalty industry, which has been listened to, has had over 9,000 listens globally in over 55 countries. I've also got over 28 years experience in the loyalty industry, and I've worked with the brands that you see on the screen now, so likes of British Airways, Domino's, IAG, Deliveroo, B&Q. These are in the last couple of years. And I guess what separates New World Loyalty from other loyalty consultancies is we've been there and done that. You know, everyone in New World Loyalty has multiple years experience of actually doing the job and learning and gaining the scars of having made good moves and bad moves in the loyalty industry. So we do know what we're talking about. And Matt?
Good. So I'm Matt Oldham, founder of Partner Union, which is a loyalty and payment tech specialist. I say I've got 25 years of loyalty and payment experience, so I must be younger than Iain.
You've been saying it for a few years though, Matt, isn't
That's
it?
true. That's true. I've worked with brands such as GE Capital in the retail space, Finian in the financial services space, and Avios in the frequent flyer space. So across a number of loyalty across a number of sectors. I've worked with Iain a lot over that time, and we're still talking to each other, so that can't be bad. Cool. So Iain, why don't we crack on with the challenge? I guess one of the things that we feel is that one of the toughest challenges to overcome in loyalty is internal, i.e. within your own organization, as there are many different stakeholders who all want slightly different things from a loyalty program. You might recognize some of this in your own businesses, but the CEO is under pressure to deliver growth and deliver revenue. So his request is, will this program make me money fast? And then he probably sits next to a CFO. I've worked with many. Very few like spending money unless they can see guaranteed returns from that. And then chief marketing officers, and I know there's lots of people here in marketing, so I've got to be careful with what I say, but a lot of marketeers want recognition. So their question is, how is this program going to win me an award? And they might be down the corridor from a CTO who likes technology and maybe sees this as a good way of upgrading his train set. And then lots of people here want to talk about customer experience. So the head of CX, head of UI want beautiful, seamless interactions with their customers. And then there's the customer. Remember them. What do they want? Well, we know that they're increasingly demanding. We know that they're less willing to give data up for nothing. They want fewer apps that are more meaningful on their phone. And they're more educated about a sense of what value means in loyalty. So when it does come to loyalty, any fool can just throw stuff away and give stuff away. But how can you do that profitably? Iain, you and I have come across this scenario of conflicting shareholders several times. Can you help us out? How can we sort of jointly create a checklist that helps us meet all these conflicting interests?
Yeah, so I mean, Matt, we've worked around and worked together for many years, and we've seen models that go on for the very complex loyalty models that go on for whole departments are involved in it, let alone numbers of spreadsheets. And so loyalty can be really, really complex, and it often runs to multiple pages. But I think this can be simplified into a simple formula, a single formula which describes how it can be done. And like all good marketing, this is a balance between art and science in the creative part of marketing matched with the scientific numbers. And the beauty of loyalty is that everything can ultimately be measured, which is such an advantage over other parts of marketing. So I'll share the formula with you now, and bear with me. It's 2 minutes, and so this is the formula for loyalty that we found.
Everyone's so excited about listening to formulas on conferences.
So the formulas we know is benefit over cost, clearly, and ROI is benefit over cost, and the cost side is simply the sales. How much does your organization sell? What's your total revenue? What's the penetration of loyalty across those sales? So how many customers or what proportion of revenue are you giving loyalty out on? And then what is the value of that reward? So what is the percentage reward you're giving to your customer base? And then finally, your operating costs. So how much is the cost of providing a loyalty program and managing it and having the staff to operate it? And on the benefits side, this is more about first of all about how many of those customers that are members of the program are you actually influencing? And then how much more are they buying from you? So what is their change of behavior? How much more are they buying from you? And what is the margin on those products? And then any other additional benefits that the program is that you as an organization are gaining from the loyalty program. And that's the basic formula for loyalty. So ROI being benefit over cost, being exactly as I've described. And so that is the formula. So if we can all wake up now, and I've just gone over that. So I won't go over that again. But what we will now do is hopefully go over some examples of how that works and how this impacts the discussion that Matt was talking about before. So first of all, let's take an example of a petrol retailer. So a petrol retailer may have a turnover, in this case, of 200 million. And the penetration rate of the loyalty program I'm putting in here is 20%. Okay, and the reward would be, in this case, 0.5%, being that it's a low margin industry, and 0.5% is fairly typical, certainly in the UK and Europe, about what the reward rate might be. And if those things are true, then the cost of your loyalty program before the operating costs, which we haven't got in here, would be 200,000. If we then take if we then take the benefit side, is if we assume that we're influencing 40% of the customers that are within the loyalty program. Again, you're never going to influence all of the people in the program, because some people shop because it's their local, some people, certainly where my dad's from, there's only one petrol retailer for 100 miles. So everyone shops there. And so you can't say that their customers there are influenced by the loyalty program because they have no choice. So that number will never be 100, and in this case I'm saying 40% of the 20% that are in your loyalty program are being influenced, and I'm in here saying that they would be influenced by 25%, meaning that they would shop one more time in 4 from you. So out of the 4 fills, the last 4 fills they had, they might do one more fill with you. And then saying what is the margin on the products that you're selling, I'm saying 5%. So in the case of this petrol retailer, the ROI, if you believed all of these numbers, would be 1. And I think that just illustrates just how tricky this is, because the key question in this case is, how can you consistently influence 40% of the customers in your program? And the second big challenge is, and how can you consistently drive a 25% uplift in sales in these programs, especially on the understanding that almost every petrol retailer has a loyalty program, and a lot of them have been in there for a long time. So say, for example, I know, Shell, for example, have had loyalty programs that have lasted 25 years. I know they've recently changed theirs, but that I know because I was part of the team that set that up originally, and that was only taken away last year. So, these are the key challenges from loyalty, especially in a reward program that only is giving away 0.5% of your turnover. So 0.5% reward to customers, which is very small.
Iain, so fuel retail is one of the titans of loyalty. Going back to Tiger tokens in the 80s, and you say Shell being involved in loyalty for 25 years plus. We've both worked with Shell as either you're working for them or as a partner. They do actually measure, or used to measure, how many sites people would drive past to go to a Shell site based on loyalty. So it is something they're actively measuring.
100%. And in fact, this is where the science and the art comes in, is that the bottom line of this formula, you can absolutely measure empirically. You know what your costs are, and any loyalty professional will be able to tell you what their costs are. The top line's far more difficult to measure, because, as you said, it's about understanding what percentage customers are influenced and how much they change behavior. You can ask customers that, but they won't tell you. And so exactly at Shell, they used to say fills out of 4 was a key measure. And obviously we now have NPS as a measure on that scale. But again, it was fills out of 4, which was the key measure, certainly at that time.
One of the brutal facts that this shows is that, we know that on average, the average transaction value at a fuel site in the UK is about 28 quid. So at 50 basis points on reward, on average, customers getting what, 14 pence? And we're expecting that 14 pence to have a big influence.
I totally agree, and it's this is again why it's so tough to get the loyalty right, because you have to have a lot of 14p's before you can pass what I kind of call in loyalty sense the toaster test. Can you get the toaster at the end of the year or something of reasonable value at the end of the year? And in a petrol retailer, you need a lot of fills in order to pass that test or be an incredibly high value customer. And what you generally tend to find in petrol retail, because of these economics, is it tends to be the very high value users that get the most out of these programs, and often they are aimed at the likes of the ambulance driver or the policeman or whatever who is filling up at places using petrol that he's not paying for, and therefore seeking a reward that rewards him rather than their employer. But it's a really good example of just how tough the economics of loyalty can be if you understand this formula.
So what your model, what your formula is showing is the different levers that loyalty marketers have to play with. And effectively, you're saying it's a set of trade-offs. You can't have them all. For example, you can't have really high penetration with a high value reward and expect to have big value, but then expect to have a positive return.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But what we can show you is using case studies of just how other companies deal with these dynamics. So example, if you if you example, is airline programs. Airline programs are incredibly popular, incredibly profitable, and they're the ones that perhaps use this formula the strongest. So if you take an airline program like American Advantage card, the American Advantage program generated $3.6 billion worth of profit in 2019 from its loyalty program, and that's an astonishing amount of money. That's worth more than a lot of European airlines, full stop. And they generate that from doing two things in this formula. First of all, they sell a lot of miles to partners, and they also then redeem those points at a high perceived but actually quite a low cost for the airline, because airlines have ultimately perishable product, in that if an airline takes off with an empty seat, that's perishable product, and therefore they can put people on those seats at a lower cost than that seat actually cost, or the ticket would have cost. And again, this is and Matt, we can use this formula to describe all sorts of things within the loyalty industry.
So Tesco's have often been sort of positioned as the poster child of loyalty in the UK, and we've worked with them before as sort of Avios reward partners. They do have high penetration within Clubcard, but still have big influence. Does that mean your model doesn't work for them?
No, I think Tesco's Clubcard's a great example in here, where they really play this influence card strongly. So it's recognised as one of the world's leading loyalty programs, and the way they do that is they very cleverly play off penetration against influence by including lots of small hurdles. So, I mean, everyone on this call is aware of customer of UI and UX and customer engagement, but what they do here is they constantly use small filters to filter out the unengaged. Over the years, they've obviously asked people for their card, but it hasn't been so long ago since you had to walk in with your vouchers that you sent you in the post, and then you walked in with those vouchers to hand over to someone behind the counter, who then took the money off your shopping. I mean, this could have been done away with years and years ago, and it has only recently been done away with. And the reason why they do that is it constantly filters out the unengaged. What they also do is they very much aim their rewards at particular segments of their customer base. So, for example, you can get it cash off at Tesco, but they actually invest more of their reward in people that can redeem outside the store, because they know that those redemptions will have a higher influence amongst higher value customers, which will help drive them more change with a higher margin, therefore justifying the cost. And so Tesco are very, very good at this.
It's interesting around that friction in relation to customer experience, is that it's not always the most seamless customer experience that has the best benefit. I know in casinos, who are awesome at loyalty marketing in Las Vegas. They research every single last detail down to what's the noise of the click that the different machines make. It's not necessarily about the most high tech. It's about what customers want and how they can that can add to the experience. Really interesting.
I totally agree with that. Again, what casinos have done very, very well is casinos recognize this influence and change very quickly. By once you start, if I went into a casino, they'd know I was a rank amateur within minutes, because I would be playing the way that the way a really true professional gambler behaves in a casino is vastly different from me, and so they can make those distinctions very, very quickly and then drive the right reward to the right customer to drive this influence and change. They're really, really good at that.
Yeah. So another thought, we're all in lockdown, hopefully not for too much longer. We've seen the emergence of paid for loyalty, and we might not have noticed that. Hands up who's enrolled for Amazon Prime. So is subscription loyalty the ultimate trade-off in that we're reducing penetration but getting huge influence for a smaller subgroup?
It's a really good point. I mean, the most loyalty programs, or lots of loyalty programs, are now looking at a paid tier or some form of subscription, and they're doing it to do exactly that, about trading off penetration with change of behavior. And obviously, Amazon Prime is a prime example of that, where they are asking you to subscribe for a video and delivery service in order to gain your share of wallet across multiple products. But take almost any loyalty program, and that you're trying to do that trade-off. So again, in the airline space, they're experimenting with paid for premium tiers where people could buy a gold membership or buy a silver membership, and they're hoping to do that in order to access this greater share of wallet. Again, Tesco Clubcard Plus is another great example of that, where they've given a reward where they say pay more for this subscription, but they've then capped it. So they've even done it where the economics should always work in their favor because of the caps and the benefits that they put in there. So if loyalty programs aren't looking at it, I think it's a thing we're going to see growing more and more, as this subscription loyalty to gain greater share of wallet.
Yeah. So Iain, you and I can bang on about loyalty for hours and hours, but conscious of time. Finally, what are the takeaways in relation to UI and CX? What should we learn from this, and who should we learn from?
Well, I think UI and CX is using this formula. The two things I draw out is saying you need to engage the right customers with appropriate hurdles. The reason why I wrote this formula in the first place was I used to get really, really frustrated that every time a new loyalty program was launched and a journalist talked about it, journalists will always push the loyalty company to say, I want to make the program as rewarding as possible, as easy as possible, and without any friction at all for the customer. And whenever I hear those things, I just think, well, good luck writing the business model for that. So what I say here for UI and UX professionals is saying, what you're trying to do is engage the right customers with appropriate hurdles. And those appropriate hurdles, meaning that, going back to the Tesco example, very few people say Tesco's program over the years has been complicated. So customers see it as being quite easy and quite seamless. It's actually incredibly complicated and very not seamless at all. Yet they've managed to pull off that magic trick of being perceived to be that. And so I've said here, engage the right customers with appropriate hurdles. And then on the second time is to maximize change of behavior and margin, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do. I've often described my role as trying to monetize Father Christmas. We're giving stuff away in order to make money back. And that's where this balance has to come. And CX people driving for making it too seamless and too easy may not be the right thing. And so I guess I'm saying success is finding the right balance of all of these levers.
Brilliant. Look, Iain, I think that's our time up, but we'll be more than happy to take questions on this from the audience.